Somewhere in Alberta, there was a website that let a total stranger type in your name and pull up your home address, your phone number, and the ID number tied to your vote. No hacking required. No password to crack. Just a search bar, sitting wide open for months, while millions of people had no idea it existed. Hi, I'm Bo Kaufman, and this is the Sanity Project, where we dig past the algorithm-driven noise to find the stories that actually matter. And this one starts with the largest privacy breach in Canadian history. Every registered voter in Alberta, 2.9 million people, had their name, home address, phone number, and personal voter ID leaked onto a public website. Not by foreign hackers, by an organization tied to a political movement that needed exactly that data to survive. So why haven't most Canadians heard about this? That question is where this story actually begins, because the silence around it is almost as strange as the breach itself. Buried underneath the headlines is a mechanism nobody expected. A way to use stolen data to forge hundreds of thousands of signatures on a real, active petition. There's a court ruling that reads almost like a legal contradiction. And there's a warning, written a full year in advance, that the government appears to have ignored. There's also a retired lawyer who filed a lawsuit, and then quietly bought identity theft insurance for himself. The deeper we looked, the stranger and more dangerous this got. Let's get into it.
Imagine waking up tomorrow to find that your full name, your home address, your personal phone number, and your unique provincial voter ID are all just sitting on a publicly searchable website.
Yeah, just completely out there for anyone to grab.
Exactly, for anyone. And for 2.9 million Albertans, that isn't some, hypothetical cybersecurity thought experiment. That actually happened?
It did. Every single registered voter in the province had their data leaked.
Leaked and published online by a separatist organization. I mean, we are talking about one of the absolute largest, most consequential privacy breaches in Canadian history. So welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a massive story.
It really is. And before we even get into the mechanics of this, we actually want to hear from you. If you are an Alberta voter listening to this right now, please drop a comment and let us know if you checked the petition registry and actually found your name on it without your consent.
Because that massive data breach is, it's the absolute center of gravity for everything we are going to look at today. And what's fascinating here is that this massive data breach didn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
It occurred in the exact middle of a highly contentious petition drive, a drive pushing for Alberta's separation from Canada, which, desperately needed those specific secure data points to succeed.
Exactly. And I want to set a boundary right at the top here. Our mission today is highly specific. We are not here to debate the politics of Alberta's separation or Canadian federalism. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, we're staying out of that today.
We are here to conduct an investigative breakdown of a democracy integrity crisis. We are looking squarely at what happened to the democratic process that was supposed to host that debate.
And we've got a lot of documentation to back this up.
Oh, a ton. We've pulled a massive stack of sources. We've got the civil legal filings, the Alberta Court of Appeals June 29 ruling, press releases straight from Elections Alberta, the deep dive reporting from the Sanity Project, and of course ground level coverage from Global News, CBC, CP24, and The Guardian.
And looking at the sheer volume of that source material, the common thread is just system failure. Total system failure.
Right, because to understand the potential for systemic fraud here, you have to look at how the data was initially transferred in the first place.
Exactly. By law, Elections Alberta manages this incredibly sensitive voter list. And under standard democratic rules, they provide that list to registered political parties for, legitimate campaigning purposes.
Which makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Parties need to know who the voters are. So the Republican Party of Alberta, which is led by Cam Davies, received that list completely legally.
Totally legally. But then, looking at the Elections Alberta press releases, the chain of custody breaks down almost immediately after that.
It does. It completely falls apart.
Because the Republican Party of Alberta took this highly restricted database and just transferred it to an unauthorized third-party organization called the Centurion Project.
Right. And the Centurion Project is this pro-separation grassroots data-gathering organization. It's directed by a political operative named David Parker.
Okay, so they have the data. But the critical mechanism to understand here isn't just that they possess the data behind closed doors, right?
No, not at all. The investigations reveal that they actually engineered a publicly accessible, searchable website.
Wait, publicly accessible?
Yeah. They built a custom user interface that allowed virtually anyone to search for specific individuals by name or address. and then it would pull up their restricted electoral information.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because that is wild. Conceptually,
Yeah.
that is like Elections Alberta giving the master key to a bank vault to a licensed security guard.
Right.
And that guard just handing it to a guy on the street who then proceeds to post copies of the key on telephone poles all over town.
That is a perfect analogy. And the scale of the exposure was immediate. I mean, it was catastrophic. According to the internal tracking from the investigations, 21 individuals were given complete, unrestricted administrative copies of the entire database.
21 people had the whole thing.
The whole thing. And 545 unique users accessed the live tool before it was finally flagged. Elections Alberta was forced into this massive mitigation effort. They had to send out 568 cease and desist letters to try and lock the system down.
So you have to push back on the utility of that, though.
How so?
Well, if a database is digitized and distributed to 21 people who then access it hundreds of times, a cease and desist letter is just a piece of paper. You can't put that genie back in the bottle.
No, you really can't.
The data is copied, it's traded, it's out in the wild.
And the structural damage is permanent. Which brings us to the most alarming details surrounding the ongoing investigations by the RCMP, Elections Alberta, and the Provincial Privacy Commissioner.
David Parker.
Exactly. The reporting indicates that David Parker, the head of the Centurion project, is actively stonewalling the investigation. Official statements from Elections Alberta specifically note he is not cooperating with their probes.
Which is a huge red flag. And because the referendum was essentially frozen by this lack of cooperation, we have to look at the intersection of that leaked data and the actual petition that was submitted on May 5th.
Right, the 300,000 signatures.
Yeah. Mitch Sylvester, a separatist leader, delivered a petition to Elections Alberta boasting over 300,000 signatures demanding a referendum on independence. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, this is the core of it.
Looking at the mechanics of this, the Centurion project's website contained the exact missing pieces needed to fake a signature.
This is the mechanical failure of the whole system. Because to validate a signature on a citizen initiative petition in Alberta, you don't just write down a name.
Right.
You need the unique elector ID. Think of that elector ID as like a two-factor authentication code for your democratic voice.
Like getting a text on your phone when you log into your bank.
Exactly like that. If someone has your name and your address, but not that ID, the signature gets flagged and rejected by the system. But the leaked database provided that 2FA bypass for 2.9 million people.
Which perfectly explains the real-world fallout we are seeing in the CBC and global news coverage. Regular Albertans are going onto Reddit threads and Facebook groups, realizing their names appear on the Stay Free Alberta petition, and they know for a fact they never signed it.
Yeah, the leaked data wasn't just viewed. It was actively weaponized to bypass the verification mechanism.
And when you have widespread public reports of forged signatures, coupled with a confirmed breach of the exact cryptographic key needed to forge those signatures, the entire political movement loses its legitimacy.
It does. You transition immediately from a grassroots initiative to a systemic fraud investigation. And this is the exact legal knot that landed in front of the Alberta Court of Appeal in late June.
The ruling from Justice Alice Woolley on June 29 is a really fascinating piece of legal needle threading, because the court was looking at a profoundly tainted process.
Yeah, they had a mess on their hands.
But instead of just throwing the whole thing out or letting it proceed normally, Justice Woolley issued a partial stay. She ruled that Elections Alberta must continue the process of verifying those 300,000 signatures.
And the underlying logic there is transparency. The public has a fundamental right to know the statistical results of that verification. We need to see exactly how many of those signatures were fraudulent.
But the roadblock she throws up is massive. She explicitly blocked the chief electoral officer from taking the next statutory step.
Sending the results to the Minister of Justice.
Exactly. Because under the Citizen Initiative Act, handing those verified results over is the legal trigger that automatically forces a constitutional referendum.
And the court recognized a fundamental constitutional paradox here. You cannot allow a profoundly compromised petition to trigger a constitutional crisis before the judiciary can even examine the underlying legality of the data gathering.
Right. If the ongoing verification process uncovers massive fraud facilitated by the leaked data, the separatist mandate completely collapses on its own.
But, and this is the big, but what if the verification somehow returns a statistically clean result?
Yeah, what if they actually have enough real signatures?
Even if the final tally looks mathematically sufficient, the methodology is still fundamentally tainted by the source data contamination.
I mean, how can the electorate trust a verification process when the people submitting the petition are organizationally connected to the exact same network that leaked the verification data?
They can't. The data pool is poisoned.
And because the referendum mechanism has been entirely frozen by the Court of Appeal, the battle has naturally spilled over from political verification into civil and constitutional lawsuits.
The timeline here moves incredibly fast.
It really does. Let's anchor it so we don't get lost. May 13th. Justice Shana Leonard initially quashes the petition entirely. Her rulings cited a failure by the Crown to consult First Nations, specifically noting that secession could violate Treaty 8 rights.
And the mechanics of that Treaty 8 ruling are crucial to understand. Treaty 8 is a foundational nation-to-nation agreement established between First Nations and the federal Crown, meaning the Government of Canada.
Right.
Because the treaty is inherently bound to federal jurisdiction, a single province attempting to unilaterally sever its ties to Canada fundamentally breaks the legal mechanism of the treaty.
Yeah.
Alberta cannot separate without unilaterally collapsing that federal framework.
Which is a huge legal barrier. But the Daniel Smith government actually appealed that initial quashing. They went to court to fight to keep this separatist petition alive.
Which is a choice.
Yeah, quite the choice. And that leads directly to the June 29 Court of Appeal split ruling that froze the referendum trigger. And then the very next day, June 30, the civil litigation drops.
A massive class action lawsuit.
Filed by Clint Dawkin, a retired Alberta lawyer.
And the scope of that class action really dictates the next chapter of this crisis. Dawkin named an extensive list of defendants: the Alberta government itself, Elections Alberta, the Centurion Project, David Parker, and the Republican Party of Alberta.
And there is a highly revealing detail in the Sanity Project reporting about this. Dawkin personally went out and purchased identity theft insurance specifically because of this data breach.
Wow. When a retired class action attorney buys identity theft insurance to protect his own assets, it really strips away the abstraction.
It does. It tells you this is a tangible threat, not just a theoretical privacy complaint on paper.
Exactly. And looking at the actual filings, this lawsuit escalates the stakes significantly by alleging a Charter Section 7 violation.
A Section 7 claim shifts the legal framework entirely, doesn't it?
Completely. This isn't just about a breach of the Provincial Privacy Act anymore. They are arguing that by failing to secure this critical data infrastructure, the government and these third-party organizations have actually infringed on the fundamental constitutional right to life, liberty, and security of the person.
That is heavy.
It is. And to demonstrate this, the lawsuit proposes the certification of a vulnerable subclass of victims.
And the composition of that subclass is what makes this so severe. The filing lists domestic violence survivors, judges, journalists, police officers, and healthcare workers.
Think about that.
I mean, if you are a survivor of domestic violence who is literally relocated to escape an abuser, your home address being published on a searchable open source database isn't just spam or a privacy violation. It is a direct physical threat to your life.
Exactly. Or if you are a Crown prosecutor handling organized crime syndicates, or a judge presiding over high-profile gang cases, having your home address and phone number distributed to 21 unrestricted users is basically a targeting mechanism.
It transforms a digital data leak into a very real physical security crisis.
It really does.
Let me synthesize the legal paradox we are looking at right now, because the contradictions here are just staggering.
Go for it.
So, the Alberta government is currently sitting in court as a defendant in a massive class action lawsuit for utterly failing to protect the physical security and data of its voters.
Right.
Simultaneously, that exact same government is acting as an appellant in a separate courtroom, aggressively fighting to revive the very petition process that incentivized and caused those voters' data to be stolen in the first place.
The irony is inescapable.
Yeah.
And it becomes even more profound when you look at the legislative history here.
Oh, this is the part that really got me.
Yeah. According to the investigative reports, it was the government's own prior actions that architected the perfect environment for this crisis to occur. Months before this petition was even filed, Premier Danielle Smith's government initiated sweeping changes to the province's democratic infrastructure.
And the reporting highlights two massive legislative shifts. First, they drastically reduced the signature threshold required for a citizen initiative. It went from a nearly insurmountable 588,000 signatures down to around 178,000.
Lowering that threshold fundamentally alters the risk-reward calculation for political operatives.
Yeah.
I mean, when the bar is that low, it creates an enormous incentive for fringe organizations to try and clear it by whatever means necessary.
Including weaponizing restricted data.
Exactly. But the second legislative shift is even more concerning. The government explicitly stripped investigatory powers from the chief electoral officer, Gordon McClure.
They changed the legal threshold required for his office to launch an investigation into election fraud.
Right. They shifted the statutory language from requiring grounds to warrant investigation to requiring reasonable grounds.
Which sounds like semantics.
It sounds like mere legal semantics, yeah. But in practice, it severely handcuffs the election watchdog. And McClure himself recognized this danger. He actually warned the government in writing a full year prior, stating that this specific language change would paralyze his ability to proactively investigate fraud before it metastasizes.
So the government weakened the safeguards, the data leaked precisely as warned, the watchdog was legally constrained from starping it, and now the government is utilizing public resources to fight in court to validate the results of that exact broken system.
It's unbelievable. Which demands we look at the geopolitical implications.
So what does this all mean on a macro level?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is not just a localized story of bureaucratic incompetence or botched server management in Alberta. The investigative reporting and court filings point to a broader pattern of foreign-aligned political architecture operating within the province.
And we are looking strictly at the objective facts documented in the Sturgeon Lake Cree First Nation court filings and the deep dive reporting here. We're not taking a political side.
No, strictly the documented facts.
Because the First Nation explicitly warned the court that a vote to leave Canada will enable foreign interference from the most powerful nation to the south.
And that warning from the First Nation aligns perfectly with the investigative timeline. The reporting details that in late 2025, separatist activists from Alberta actually held covert cross-border meetings with members of the Trump administration in the United States.
Wow. And when you look at the actual name of the registered political party that facilitated the illegal data transfer, the Republican Party of Alberta, it isn't just a coincidence of branding.
Not at all. The architecture of this entire movement bears distinct American political fingerprints. I mean, the aggressive weaponization of voter lists, the leveraging of sympathetic provincial legislation to weaken independent electoral oversight.
The use of endless petition drives to force constitutional gridlock.
Exactly. It is an imported playbook. It is a highly coordinated effort to apply foreign political tactics directly to a Canadian jurisdiction.
Basically, the mechanics of democracy were reverse engineered. They used the province's own stolen data to fuel an engine designed to dismantle the province's ties to the rest of the country.
That's exactly what happened.
So what is the final verdict on all of this? Because despite all of the lawsuits and the frozen verification process, there is still a referendum scheduled on the calendar for October 19th, 2026.
Right. The October 19 referendum will technically proceed, but the context has shifted entirely. The Smith government softened the actual question on the ballot.
How so?
Instead of an immediate separation trigger, it will just ask if Albertans want to remain a province, or commence the legal process to hold a binding referendum on separation later. Crucially, it is a non-binding vote.
Okay, so it's more of a temperature check now.
Yes, but the defining characteristic of this upcoming vote is that it takes place entirely under the shadow of the stolen list.
It is impossible to uncouple the referendum from the fraud that initiated it.
Completely impossible. A political movement that relies on stealing the highly sensitive, protected data of 2.9 million citizens to artificially inflate its relevance, and whose leadership actively stonewalls law enforcement and privacy commissioners when caught, does not possess a clean democratic mandate.
No.
The foundation of the movement is structurally compromised, regardless of what the final petition tally eventually says or what the results of the October 19th non-binding vote look like.
The vault was left open, the two-factor authentication keys were stolen and published online, and operatives used those keys to try and lock the citizens out of their own democratic process.
And this raises an important question, a really critical, lingering question.
Yeah.
If a single province's entire democratic infrastructure can be frozen, compromised, and tied up in constitutional lawsuits by one targeted data leak orchestrated by a relatively small fringe group,
Yeah.
what happens when highly sophisticated state-sponsored malicious actors decide to deploy this exact same playbook during a federal election?
Oh man, that is exactly the kind of threat that should make everyone reevaluate how securely our democratic foundations are actually built.
It really should.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Alberta data crisis. As a reminder, if you want to explore the primary court filings, the legislative changes, and read the full investigative report, head over to thesanity.org.
Lots of great details in there.
There really are. And if you value this kind of thorough mechanical breakdown of the news, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a deep dive. We will see you next time.
There's an image from this story that's hard to shake. A vault door propped open, the keys photocopied and handed out on the street, while everyone insists the vault is still secure. That's what happens when convenience gets prioritized over protection. Not just in Alberta, but anywhere a government treats voter data as paperwork rather than a responsibility. The technology here wasn't sophisticated. The failure was procedural. And procedural failures are the ones we're least prepared to notice, right up until 2.9 million people are already exposed. If this story made you think differently about how quietly a democratic process can be compromised and how long it can take anyone to notice, Subscribe to the Sanity Project and share it with someone who still values understanding over outrage. The full investigation is published free at thesanity.org. See you next time.
If you want more facts and less fear, hit subscribe. Check out the next breakdown wherever you're listening or watching. Stay sane, Canada.